What's going on, Broncos Country? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown. This is going to be a reaction, analysis, and mailbag sort of show today, stemming from the Sean Payton hiring. We filmed it during our live show, which was live for Sean Payton, which is why you got to be subscribed. But let's jump into what your thoughts are, what people have questions about following the Sean Payton move. So Nathan asked, the start of a new era, lots to look forward now. If you agree with Nathan, drop a DB4L down in the comment section. Eric Brown next up. What moves should we make next in order to be better than last year? Eric, that's a really good question. It has to start with the offensive line. The Broncos do not have a first and do not have a second round pick. So those two third rounders, 67 and 68 overall, have to be impact players, which is a big ask for third round. But George Payton has to find those kinds of players. And in free agency, names like Mike McGlinchey, Orlando Brown pop in my head as potential targets as tackles because you are once again looking for a new right tackle, and Garrett Bowles is coming off a broken leg. Something tells me he might not be ready week one. So the offensive line, if Dalton Reisner walks, the only name I can confidently say is going to be a starter next year is Quinn Miners at right guard. Talking about 4 potential vacancies. I can't confidently say Cushenberry will be back. He probably will be, but offensive line has to be the number one move, Eric. Michael with the super chat saying, let's go Broncos. Appreciate you, Michael. If you're upbeat about this hire, let me know in the comment section. Nate with another super chat echoing the same thing, saying, let's go Denver, Sean Payton. Now we got this coming in from David. Does this mean that George Payton is done as GM? Also hope that we can get McGlinchey from 49ers for right tackle. Great minds think alike, David. I would love to see Mike McGlinchey come over from the Bay Area. I think that would be a very strong, sturdy free agent pickup for George Payton. But to answer your initial question, I don't think so. I think it'd be a little unfair of the ownership to move on from George Payton if next year doesn't go to plan when you sort of neutered and spayed George Payton by taking away his first-round pick this year, which he got for Bradley Chubb. So if you're going to grade George Payton on next year as a GM without a first and without a second-round draft pick, sure, he's responsible for no second, but he did get a first back. So I don't think George Payton will be under a huge microscope for 2023. Now, hey, if you have not subscribed yet, make sure you go ahead and do so because mailbags like this, they are for subscribers only. So if you've got a question, you want to be a part of an interactive YouTube channel that gets your voice and your thoughts on screen, this is the one for you. Let's check out this question coming in from Peyton J. Do we get more picks if Evero is hired by Indy? Very good question. Yes. So the way it works is if Evero were to be hired by any team, or the Indianapolis Colts in this instance, Denver would get a third-round pick this year. It would be a compensatory pick, so a bit later in round 3, and a third-round pick next year, which would give them 3 picks in the third round next year. Their own, the Saints, and one from the NFL for a comp pick. So, yes, it would be a third-round pick this year and a third-round pick next year. Question coming in from Peyton J. Taysom Hill trade. You got to wonder if Sean Payton's now going to ask for his buddy Taysom Hill, the Storm and Mormon, as people in New Orleans call him, to come up to Denver. Maybe there was a chance of that in the initial trade package. They could do a second trade with them. That has been done before. I remember like last year the Browns traded for Watson and they traded with the Texans again during the draft, so it's not impossible. But regardless of that, maybe he asked for Taysom Hill to come to Denver. The Denver Broncos only have 6 picks in the 2023 draft, so if Hill's going to cost anything in 2023, probably not going to happen, but it could be interesting for sure. I can't pronounce that. Would you sign a back like David Monetogmery to pair with Javonte Williams? Okay, little off the Sean Payton trail, but I like it because Javonte Williams is not going to be a part of this team in 2020. Javonte Williams is not going to be a part of this team at the start of 2023. He's coming off a major knee surgery, similar to J.K. Dobbins and Saquon Barkley, who were not ready to go week 1. Following that, and also happened later in the season compared to Dobbins and Barkley. So for that reason, I think Montgomery's probably too expensive. He's going to look for upwards of $10 million. He might get it, he might not, but I'm definitely not going to be the team that offers him that with the way your going to hope Javonte Williams comes back in return. You go Latavius Murray in a different route, I think, at running back here. But let me know, what do you think about this one? Okay. Should the Broncos go out and draft a QB? Right? Should Denver go out and with a third-round pick of theirs? Kind of off the wall here, but this is definitely going to be a hot topic question moving forward. Without a first-rounder, should they use one of their 6 bullets left in the chamber following this trade to get a quarterback here? Eddie Martinez next up on the show. What's the next move for the Broncos now that they have their head coach? Great question, Eddie. Always appreciate seeing you in the comments section. So the next move is not going to be a trade, most likely. I see one of 2 paths. Denver's going to have, I don't know, about $35-ish million to spend in free agency. We'll see how much restructuring and how much releasing they do and whatnot. Like they could cut Ronald Darby, for example, some other cut candidates out there. But they've got to go out and shore up and beef up the offensive line. That's got to be mission number 1 for Denver, right? Russell Wilson was the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL last season, only behind Justin Fields. That has to be the biggest priority. Now, in terms of trades, I don't see anyone coming in the building. Maybe George Payton trades away some older assets to try and recoup some draft capital with only having 6 picks. I know he loves draft picks. Every GM does. Maybe him more than others. So that could be something to watch for. Could we see a Courtland Sutton trade happen next? Something of that tier, of that neighborhood? Try and get some picks back? Courtland Sutton, I don't think is going to get you maybe what you would like him to. Amari Cooper went for a 5th in the middle of the offseason last year. Chase Claypool went for a 2nd. The NFL makes no sense sometimes. But man, if you can get a 3rd for Courtland Sutton, you'll probably think long and hard about it. Super chat coming in from Elliot Franco. Any word on the amount that Sean Payton is getting and for how many years? Good question. I'm going to look at Twitter right now and see what we've got going here. As we film this right now, which is Tuesday, January 31st, 3:24 Mountain Time, I do not have that information. Potentially by the time you're watching this, we do know that. But for now, I've got to envision it's going to be in the neighborhood of $20 million to make him the highest paid head coach in NFL history. I am Frey. Will Jerry Jeudy have a crazy year? Will we keep him in the long run? Jerry Jeudy's 5th-year option decision has to be made this offseason. He's after year 3. This is when you decide on the 5th year. It's going to cost Denver around 15 or so million. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it's in that ballpark to pick up and exercise that 5th-year option. I'm guessing they're going to do that. Jerry Jeudy ended the year with a hair under 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, most of which he got in the second half of the season. And it really showed that, all right, that's the 15th overall pick right there, right? That is someone who can really turn into a good, real wide receiver 1. So I'm projecting that they will pick up that 5th-year option, have him under control for another season, and go from there. Alpha Wolf, what's up? I'm so glad about this. I feel like this is what we needed. I remember last year when they hired Hackett, I wanted to be optimistic. I think you should always want to be, right? You always want to believe your team hired a good coach. The fact is, if there's 6 hirings on average, let's say, every single NFL offseason for a head coach, probably 2 work out. Probably 1 is there for more than 5 seasons. And that probably sounds a bit generous. So for that reason, I'm definitely going to be more optimistic than I was about Hackett last year, because we are talking about a Super Bowl winning coach after all here. And that's the price of a 29th overall pick, which I invite you to go back and look at previous drafts, and you'll see it's not as, hit rate as you might think it is. Sign me up. We got a $20 super chat question in coming from Sam BBM. Hi, Matt. Been watching your shows for a while now. Really like your content and knowledge of the NFL and Broncos. Good stuff. So pumped and relieved about having having Payton as the head coach. Go Broncos. Sam, really appreciate your kind words. I'm pumped up too, man. I share the same feelings you do. Thank you so much for your generosity. Go Broncos, friend. Now, we do have an awesome deal right now with our friends over at Fanatics. So, when you go to chatsports.com/BroncosZip, you can get this hoodie on sale right now. It's still a bit chilly out there. Here in Dallas, where Chat Sports is based out of, snowing a little bit here, and all the Southerners are freaking out. We've been watching cars somewhat wreck on the highway all day. Kind of entertaining. But hey, if you want to be warm in style with a Broncos hoodie, go to chatsports.com/BroncosZip. That link's in the comments and the description of today's show. Lopez is next up on the show. Who is the first person you think Sean will want to get? Great question. So I like this a lot, and one name that comes to mind is Vic Fangio. Now, maybe by the time you're watching this, we have more updates on this. But I do remember in January, Adam Schefter wrote a piece that Sean Payton was putting together a staff, and it included Vic Fangio. Now, I know what you're saying. Isn't he the DC of the Dolphins? Is he? I haven't heard Vic Fangio come out and say it. I saw Tom Pelissero tweet it, and then I saw some reports of, I'd pump the brakes just a little bit on this. Now, Fangio is a consultant for the Eagles this year, so maybe he's just waiting till after the Super Bowl. But with DeMeco Ryans out of San Francisco and Sean Payton in Denver, maybe Fangio goes, you know what? We haven't signed any contract yet. I wouldn't mind my old job back in San Fran, or it would be very awkward. I really can't piece it together how it would go down. But if he is destined to work with Sean Payton, swallow his pride and come to Denver and money talks, that's the best I've got right there. In terms of other key staff members, Kellen Moore is already with the Chargers, so you can kind of rule that one out. Lombardi from the Chargers, who got fired by the Chargers. I know he worked with Sean Payton down in New Orleans, so that could be an option right there. Definitely some big names still on the market, no doubt about it. We got a question coming in from Retro Reviews. Can we go back to the awesome uniforms from the 80s and early 90s? I do think that Denver is doing some research into changing their uniforms because it's just not it, right? I think we can come up with better ones. I don't hate them. They're not the worst in the NFL. They're not 32nd. But are they top half? Probably not. So for that reason, hey, I'm not opposed to switching it up and maybe getting some new unis indeed. So yeah, I guess you could sign me up with that. Okay, we got a question coming in from Peyton J. Who could be some possible offensive coordinators Sean Payton brings with? It's a good question. Like I mentioned, Lombardi, who was with the Chargers, and he was with Sean Payton in New Orleans as a quarterbacks coach. That's definitely one name that comes to mind right now. Thinking of some other OCs, Byron Leftwich. He was fired from the Bucs. He's a Super Bowl winning play caller. That could be pretty appealing right there. Those are two names that pop out to me right now on the spot. I'm going to come up with a better list for you, Peyton, but maybe those two names, pencil them down initially. We love the Broncos. I want a better backup behind Russ in case he sucks again. What guys do you think he would fit well with? Good question, because Brett Rippon, he's not the backup quarterback, right? He ain't it. Like, he's not an NFL quarterback. Sorry, Brett. It's fun, cool name, grip it and rip it, but come on now. So, free agent backup QBs, and we'll end with this question here. Jacoby Brissett, he did a really good job with the Browns this year, I thought. Baker Mayfield, I think he'll probably stay with the Rams and back up Matthew Stafford, but you can't rule it out. Teddy Bridgewater, talk about Fangio and Bridgewater coming back, a whole bunch of reunions right there. He was not really good with the Dolphins this year, though. Case Keenum, talk about familiar faces as well. And what about Sam Darnold? I have no idea what the Panthers are going to do. So those are the best 5 options I've got right there. I definitely think they need to go out and get a better backup QB because Hackett, he really didn't have the courage to pull Russell Wilson. He knew if he took out Russ, he was probably next to go. Peyton, he's not so tied to Russell Wilson. So if things don't go well, he's definitely going to want to have a much better backup in there. Now, who do you think the Broncos backup QB should be? Let me know in the comments section below.